if you have not been at our Monday seminar before, this is our panel of missionaries, the first one we'll have today. So I've prepared some questions for each of you. Sadly, Philip already answered all of them. So I chose a new question.
Go.
It's just for you, Philip. Are you ready? Do you special order your shirts? Because those cuffs are amazing. Are you going to answer the question?
Is this a serious question? I will say, not this particular shirt, but my wife makes a lot of my shirts for me.
That's amazing.
She is
Go
very
Cheryl.
talented, yes.
All right, okay, I'll get serious now. Thank you for answering that, though. I really have been curious all morning. So we got to hear from each of you about some changes that have happened in your ministries over the last year or so. And actually, what I was wondering, if you guys are willing to open up a little bit on a personal level, what have been the greatest challenges due to COVID, due to shutdowns, that you have faced personally, or in your family, or with your children? Maybe Mr. Roots, so I'm saying it correctly. If you could start and address that question.
Yeah, I think for us, it's been very rough ride. We not only did COVID hit and all that kind of stuff, but we also decided to move continents in last July. So I think that for us, the impact on our family has been very challenging, especially for our kids. You know, being in Africa for the last 7 years, for a lot of them, they established their friendships and their character and who they are on Africa, and that's who they were. And then moving up here and uprooting all that was very difficult, very, very difficult. So for us, I was just talking to Bill here. We really had to focus on the ones that's really, I mean, the little ones, I got 6 kids. So the little ones, they could care less. I mean, you could go to the moon, they're like, woohoo! But my teenagers, they're the ones that had a really hard time. And they're the ones we had to really focus on to be able to grab their hearts. We need to have their hearts at all times. So then we started focusing on making sure we have father-daughter dates and go on dates and special things and trips with our kids and be able to grab their hearts. I'm here with my son. Luckily, he's not here today, so I can talk about it. But I need to grab his heart, you know. And it is so important in times when it's so difficult and hard. I have to sometimes sacrifice ministry, be able to grab my son's heart. I had to cancel meetings to take him to the movies, or I gotta, not be able to go to a conference in Minneapolis so I can go golfing with him. It's because his heart is more important than the ministry, what I'm doing. Because I made a commitment a long time ago. I'm not going to sacrifice my kids on the altar of ministry. So for that, we're not through. We're not through it at all. I think we're getting close, but it's been very hard and difficult to kind of just work through it and help them through it, help them battle, listening, a lot of listening, screaming, yelling, crying, but to listen to their hearts and to hear what they're going through, and to acknowledge, I'm sorry, this sucks. It does suck. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Good. Thank you so much. Anybody else?
COVID for me has been pretty difficult. I was stuck here in the States. And so we came back at the beginning of it and had to go through all the rules and the masking and all that stuff. But when the cat's away, the mice will play. And so I went back a couple months ago, and that was a difficult time. We had some corrections to do, some discipline to do, and but also some great things, some good things happened. So it's a mixed, it's from the Satan, I think. And the church has been challenged. A lot of churches shut down for a while, and they're building back up. And we just really need to just focus and follow our Lord Jesus. And it's been difficult. It really has been. But he wins. We win, actually.
So that actually brings me to my next question, which I wanted to pose to both Bill and Jim. and I told you I wouldn't pick on you, but just a little bit, since you guys have both been around for quite a while and been in ministry for possibly longer than I've been alive. A lot of us have, a lot of us have faced this COVID situation, and for my generation, we've said we've never seen anything like this. This is the hardest thing we've ever been through. It appears that way. So for the two of you, and maybe Bill, you can start. Do you feel that way, or to you, is it more like a dirt cake with a different kind of frosting than the last dirt cake you had 2 decades ago?
Well, is this on? Should be on. Okay. Number one, Carlene went through a surgery for cancer, major surgery. I've had a new hip, a new shoulder, and 8 inches of intestines taken out. So we've been through that round of stuff and still doing the purpose of God. Amen. So to me, I hate to say it, but COVID was not as big a deal because we were able then also to do things at home that needed to be done. And I just wrote them down the other day. 7 one-time things that each took a lot of time. Okay? So we accomplished those even in spite of my wife's surgery and that healing, which is still going on. And when I look at overseas people and what they go through, when people here are making such a monumental thing about COVID, I just kind of shake my head. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, it's different. Yes, we have to advance. But compare that to people that are being persecuted every day. Maybe the husband's been in prison for years and the mother is raising 2, 3, 4 kids. We know people like that. We've supported the one lady in Peru till her husband got out, in China till her husband got out. So I think we need to look at the whole picture there and not have a pity party, number one. But yes, when things are difficult, or in this brother's case, when he goes back and there's difficulties because he wasn't there, in any younger work, that will happen. And then we deal with that, and it strengthens the work in the situation ultimately. When you can correct it, all the leaders see the correction, that's a good thing. So.
I meant to say at the beginning there were no right or wrong answers, but I think that was the right answer, so thank you. Thank you for that. Jim, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Gee, can I don't know. That was good. You know, what's the question? Yeah, okay, it's coming back. No, what?
So just experiencing COVID, what you went through with COVID,
Yeah.
Was it new? Was it same old attack from the enemy packaged differently?
I didn't like it, like anyone. Didn't have a big deal about the vaccination shot. We're from a time of polio or whatever it is, you get vaccinated. Sure. And it might have been a little different later when they started to mandate it, because as a lot of Americans, we could be stubborn, independent, which I am, and my wife's more, never mind. But anyway, she puts up with me, and she's a saint, and she stays with us, with me, and thank God for the ladies, because I can do my mission without support, because we are a team. We're as we get older, I feel just like we're just one flesh, really, and so we do it together, and we don't like it. We try to be kind, considerate, but God has our back, and I'm not really afraid to die or anything else. I'm just, we took the shot because we got thousands of people depending on us, and you just do it.
So that actually leads perfectly into the next question that I had. So you guys have already experienced a lot of things that we haven't experienced yet, at least those of you who travel overseas. But it is coming here now, where people are being mandated, things that they may or may not agree with. And the question that they're facing is, at this point, is this God saying, I need to change my personal conviction? Or is this God saying a door is being closed? Maybe this isn't my call anymore. Or is this God saying break through the door? And I guess my question to all of you is, since we all know God doesn't always give us an answer immediately, he doesn't always give us those warm, fuzzy feelings to know which way to go, what process do you go through personally and with your spouse to make those kinds of decisions? Maybe Philip, since we haven't heard much from you, do you want to address that one?
Well, I've developed something that I call my personal decision matrix. And so it helps me make big decisions like this because I had found myself at a time, especially when being asked if I wanted to be involved or serve on something, the answer oftentimes in my heart was yes. And if I didn't have the Lord's specific instruction, it became easy for me to get overextended on one side, even involved in good things, and on the other side, at times get myself into trouble. And so my decision matrix is kind of like this. It's God's will, which has got to be the trump card for everything. It could violate every piece of sound wisdom, sound financial wisdom, sound counsel, but if I'm convinced that God's telling me to do it, that's it. I have to be obedient. Then I use kind of a variation of Jim Collins' hedgehog. Am I passionate about it? Is it something that burns, fire burning in my heart for? Is it something that God's gifted and strengthened me to do? And I take out the money thing because that's not a huge core value of mine, but I put an impact. Can I make an impact doing it? That's my second filter that I use. That filter was not working well for me. 5 years ago, I was on 7 boards because of that filter. It was too broad. And so I added some questions in there. And one of the questions is, if I say yes to this, what do I have to say no to? Every yes is a no to something. It might be a no to my time. It might be a no to a conviction I've held that I might need to realize maybe this conviction is not biblically rooted. It's just a personal thing. But I need to know if I'm saying yes to this, what am I giving up as a result of this yes? Have I sought sound counsel? Do I have the Lord's peace? All his pathways are peace. So I have a series of questions that I ask myself as I'm filtering my decision through that matrix. Is it, obviously biblically sound, things like that.
Could we get a copy of that, maybe with editable fields? Everybody? Okay. Stephen, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Not after that. I thought Matrix was a movie. No, I'm serious. I love to hear people that God has given that administrative analytical mind to help coach us through so much of that. I'm much simpler.
Me too. It's okay.
And that's why we are desperately in need of Philip. Kicking us back on the track a little bit, because to me, for us, so much of that type of question is, what is the conviction? What has God called you to do that you are running after passionately? Yeah. And for our family, it's unreached people groups. What do I have to do to get access to where he's called me to be? Everything else that man puts around that, those are just things you go through. It's the target is the unreached people group. So I remember it was several years back, people were. How people love giving your comments about where you take your kids and what you do and everything. They see pictures of our kids going through all the Ebola zones, people in hazmat suits testing our kids for different things. Like, how do you do that? Put the mask on your kid, do all that. And, now it's here, but it was it's all the pathway to the target of what God has called us to. God has called us to unreached people groups. You do it. And I probably should have a much better system of that, but we're just passionate about if God has called you to do something, you do it. Yeah. You run after it.
That's really good. And don't worry, Philip will give you yours on a thumb drive, so you can just stick it in your pocket and take it with you.
I'll do it on my thumb. It's
yes.
Gonna be longer than that.
You could just make a spreadsheet and shrink it down. Perfect. So then the last question that I had for you guys, and actually I just thought of another one, so we'll go with this one. I have spoken to several missionaries, so if you didn't know, we have a missions committee. Did you know that? So I sit on that committee, and I've had the opportunity to talk with several missionaries, none of whom are you, just so you guys know in the audience, who've actually been in a place of discouragement. I know one couple, and they're not here with us right now, but have really been deep in discouragement because they still feel that passionate call, but every door to get to their mission is blocked right now. they can't get into country, they can't reach the people there. What words of encouragement would you say to them?
Prepare now for what is coming. Take any extra training, take time to get things in writing, get your family's act together if there's a weakness there, your financial situation, because you will have opportunities, whether it is in person, through Zooming, through thumb drives being smuggled into a country. There's a lot of ways to do it, or bringing key leaders out of a country to a safe country. Maybe there's only the means to bring 5 or 10 of them and then pour into them, and they then in turn will pour into the rest. It goes down line that way. That works in some persecuted countries we're working in, and we're thinking and trying to plan one of those right now. So can be done.
It's good. Anybody else?
I would just say God is amazingly creative, much beyond our scope of imagination even. And like what we were just sharing earlier, and we have talked about in the past of, some of these, when doors shut for us in one area, what we're seeing is that God was bringing some of those same people groups into our back door. And if you know me, I love America, but it bugs me to be here. I want to be out there. I want to be among the people, of these different cultures. And I would not notice the masses of that particular culture that God has at my fingertips. And I'd say, don't be afraid to dream a little bit and really see God might have brought that exact culture, it's not even a word, brought that exact culture within your fingertips in a different avenue than you've ever dreamed of it before. And it probably won't be on your radar.
Good. Jim, did you have something?
Yeah, when I went back, it was a time where you look and say, okay, Lord, are you changing my direction? And we prayed about it, and we watched it, and it doesn't. Some difficulties came up, but also a solution came up. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, I have these Kenya citizens on my board in Kenya, and one's Irish, which I'm Irish, so there was a little bias there. A lady, and she married an African Luo, and she was over there doing mission, and we just got to be really good friends. And she has a new baby girl, and we're kind of like grandparents to her. But they had connections that I was unaware of, and now we are doing the legal stuff to switch our registration and be able to work. The government wants us there. We are putting in wells, and as I had mentioned, our new churches, we started with 6. We have 20, 22, and about 18, 20 preachers that we're training. And it's just been answered prayer and things happen. And then a man, when I was here, I did a little mission talk, and he came up and he gave us $10,000 for a well. It's half priced. Wells are like $20,000, and he just came up and said, and I went, well, I guess we're still in the well business. So I'm just praising God, and he has something great. And what I always like is he plans, I don't. And it's fun. Because when you see answered prayer, and I just go, Lord, you're just great, you're awesome, and I'll try to shut up and do what you tell me. So.
Go ahead, Philip.
One of the things that came to mind there, if someone's discouraged that we're trying to minister to and listen to, I think for the most part, listening to them and being there to support them and love them is super important. I found so often it's my natural tendency to want to jump into that place of advice and want to kind of analyze what's going on, and I think we probably understand that. For the context of this question, so often I think we get discouraged because we misinterpret or we misapply what God's told us to do. And God gives some kind of revelation. He gives us a mission, and we think it's going to look like this. It's going to be this great, one victory after the other, and it's all going to happen within the next couple weeks, maybe a month at the most. And we mess up the interpretation, we mess up the timing, and we fill in all the gaps of the unknown in our own natural mind. Well, unmet expectations are the seedbed of all discouragement. And so checking our expectations. The other thing which to me is the most encouraging, and when I find myself in a time and season when what I see around me doesn't seem to line up with what God spoke to me or called me to do, I remind myself that he is with me and that he sees the big picture. There's a story, I think it's Mark and John 6 and Matthew 14. Jesus tells the disciples to go across the lake. He tells them to go to Bethsaida, which is the fishing place. So he's sending them to work. They don't want to go there, so they go to Capernaum. So they're going to Capernaum, which means the place of comfort. There's a whole interesting kind of thought in there, right? And so now all of a sudden they're struggling. They can't get across. They're like, the waves are coming up, and no matter what they do. And it's middle of the night. It's like 3 or 4 in the morning. And they are actually in a place of disobedience. So they're not even like trying to do what the Lord told them to do. They're going to Capernaum. He said to go to somewhere else, right? And it's middle of the night. It's pitch black, in the middle of a storm. They're 3.5 miles across a 7-mile lake. There's no literal physical way that Jesus could see them. And it said that Jesus was on the shore praying, and he could see them struggling. You can't see 3.5 miles across the lake in the middle of the dark, in the middle of a storm. And interesting thing, he walks across the water, he gets in the boat, they're automatically translated to the other side to Gennesaret. Not even either place. They end up in somewhere totally different. And so 2 things which are so encouraging to me in that. Number 1, God sees us, even in our disobedience. Even no matter what the circumstance, God sees us. His promise is he's always with us. The other thing is that I think God is a lot more, at times, he cares about the end, but in that case, it doesn't even take him where he told him to go. He cares about the process. He cares about what he's doing in us in the process. And sometimes that's more important, if not equally important, than the end result. If we get focused on the end result and forget that he's with us, we can start getting discouraged, especially if we have unhealthy expectations mixed up in there.
That's really good. So the last thing I wanted to close with, so we can leave on a lot of encouragement. So I'm going to make Stephen go last, because every time you speak, I just see, it's that face. I instantly feel inspired. If you could just briefly tell us, and coffee's not the answer, what gets you up in the morning? Philip, I want to start with you. We'll just go down the line.
Seeing people set free. That's it for me. I want to see people set free.
My youngest girl. I never get to sleep in. She just jumps in the room, or she comes by your bed and she just stares at you till you wake up. But no, I think for me too, it's seeing freedom in people's lives and seeing them restored.
I have a dog. Stares at me in the morning. That's not it, of course. The people. I'm just madly in love with Mukah. And I've been called to, when I retired from work, I went to the mission field. And right now, this is just a boat. And so I'm excited about going on, and even we're getting a new registration. It's going to be completely different. And the Lord showed me that I need to focus on certain areas. The people I work with are primitive. They have clothes now. They still like to eat termites. And I haven't figured that out yet, but I don't. And sour milk mixed with ash, which is a good thing, it comes back to you. but the people, the Pokot. My wife and I says, well, "What's wrong with this? We still want to go back." And
Call it on.
yeah, it is a call of God. And we just love it.
Bill?
I was pointing back there when my son David was holding our precious little great-granddaughter. And it was interesting. Somewhere out of her heart, months ago, she started doing this. When she would come to our house, she'd point at me, and I would point back, and then our fingers would touch. So that's been a thing we've done. And she was doing it back there with David just a few minutes ago. So that's precious. I think sometimes we focus too much on all this negative stuff. We're called by God Almighty. And either we believe in who God is, not just what he's doing at the moment, or we don't. If we believe it, then do what God asks you to do. And do it with energy, with joy, with anointing, with passion, and watch God work miracles. I can't be responsible for this man's failures. I mean, he's a mess, isn't he? And I'm not and I'm not responsible for his successes. I might pray for him, I might contribute to something that they're doing, but I'm responsible primarily to do what God has asked me to do. Years ago in Bible school, the only place I could get alone was a cemetery right across the street. The other students wouldn't go there. I don't know why they were afraid. The people are dead, but I could go there and pray. And in that cemetery in May of 1962, the Lord spoke to me. This is even before I met Carlene and went to Peru, that he was going to take me around the world to minister to leaders. Lord, I'm 21, what? But I wrote it down in my old Thompson Chain Bible, and it took time before that happened. First, I had to meet this wonderful lady, and without her, I'd been in deep trouble 500 times. Amen. Second, we had to go through all that we did in Peru, where there was nothing, and winning souls, starting churches, Bible school, etc. Then we had something to share with leaders overseas as we got a little older. So it's good. It's good. The will of God is tremendous.
All right. And Stephen, last but not least, what gets you up in the morning?
I'm convinced that God's going to do something today. Doesn't that make it hard to stay in bed? I know I drive my wife crazy. This morning at 4 something, I'm texting back and forth with our Rwanda leader because something's about to happen, And I really struggle once my eyes get close to open. He's going to do something today. I want to be a part of it because there's absolutely no reason why he needs me. So I want to make sure I'm present because he says we're his ambassadors. We're part of this ministry of reconciliation. I don't get it, but I want to be involved, and I don't want to miss it.
That's amazing. Sorry, guys, but that's why I saved him for last. See? Do you see that? But we love you all. So that's what we have. I firstly just want to say thank you guys, and also just want you to know how much of an honor it is for me even to just be on stage with all of you. Thank you for everything that you do. Can you guys help me thank them?